Hey again, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I'm the digital strategist here in the District 10 Council office, and we have a 2-for-1 recap for you this week. On Monday, we had priority setting, and then Tuesday, we had our regular city council meeting. Matt, you're a busy guy this week.
Yeah, and it's only Wednesday. I'm ready for a little sleep. Liz, I have to ask you, you're not wearing any green today. What's going on?
I, unlike you, am not Irish, not even a little bit, so it completely slipped my mind. But happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I guess I'll let it pass this year.
You know what? I could be wearing green sweatpants. Everybody's working from home with casual bottoms. Nobody needs to know.
This is a fair point. All right.
Let's jump into priority setting first. 2 priorities were added to the citywide roadmap for the year, and one of those was one our office worked on. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so just to clarify for folks, priority setting is this annual process by which City Council gets to line up new projects or what you might call change initiatives. So the city has its base operations within departments. That's most of what your experience of local government is, but we're always thinking about new investments, improvements in service delivery, new projects that require additional staff investment. So there's not a lot of capacity, but as you mentioned, we were told by city staff this year that they think they have capacity at this point to safely add 2 new initiatives to that roadmap. And one of them was one that we worked a lot on, which was the encampment management strategy. Basic idea behind that is that we need to do a better job of managing encampments and the conditions that our unhoused residents are living in for their benefit, first and foremost, and also for the broader benefit of the community and our environment. So I'm proposing 2 concepts here: setbacks and services. Setbacks would be starting to create space around sensitive areas. So schools, creeks, homes, and requiring that encampments be at least a certain number of feet from those sensitive areas, but at the same time, increasing our investment in the services that we're providing. I think that anyone, no matter whether they're living on the streets or not, ought to have access to just basic services, you know, the bathrooms and hand washing stations and trash removal. And I also think, case managers who are asking, helping people find other services, mental health support, job training, these sorts of things. So that's kind of the principle. There's going to be a lot of discussion about this over the coming months, but I think we can do better for our unhoused residents and our entire community. The other priority I put forward, so that one, by the way, was the #1 vote getter out of 40 projects that were put forward. So we're definitely proud of that. And also want to congratulate Councilmember Foley, who had a similar concept, and they were rolled together, as you mentioned. The other concept we put forward was this dashboard for citywide goals and performance measures. And that did quite well. It got 3 votes. It ended up 14th out of 40. The city manager referenced it recently in his comments. The mayor included a reference to it in his budget message, which I know we're going to talk about later. And so, it's getting some traction. We're going to have to keep working to build support, but I think it's a really important concept because it can improve service delivery and quality across everything that we do.
Yeah, definitely agreed there. I know we use some of those principles in our office, and they definitely inform my work and help me adjust where I should be putting my effort. So hopefully the city can do something like that as well. But let's transition down to Tuesday. There were a lot of police related items, but I think the #1 headline there was the announcement of the new police chief. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, so the city manager ran a really robust process starting last fall when Eddie Garcia decided to move on from our department. And it involved a community forum that was televised, a just battery of panels with community members and city staff, included a written questionnaire and a just very intense process. We really put these candidates through a lot. And Tony Mata, who's been with our department for 25 years and is raising his family here in San Jose, rose to the top. The city manager selected him, and city council unanimously approved his selection. I was really impressed with Tony. I don't know him super well yet, but he seems like a no-nonsense kind of person. He's really talks very clearly about police accountability and transparency. and delivering the best possible service we can to our residents, which I really appreciated. I also think he's open to the process around reimagining policing and finding ways to improve how we respond to homelessness and mental health crises, and partnering with other departments and agencies. And so I think he's got a good vision, and I'm confident he's going to do a great job. I also think we should thank Acting Chief Tyndall for being a steady hand on the rudder through this transition process, which I know hasn't been easy for the department. So this is big news, I think really exciting for everyone, and just look forward to hearing more from Chief Mata when he officially starts on Monday.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, that definitely wasn't the only police related item. We had a few more. I was really the most interested in the city auditor's report. So let's start with that one.
Yeah, it was an excellent report, very detailed, I think 80 some pages or so. And we'll have to do a separate video or explainer of some kind on that, because there was so much in there. The top line was not surprising in that we have huge staffing issues. And we've mentioned this before. We do truly have the most thinly staffed department per capita of any large city in America. And that makes it hard to deliver services at the quality and level that people expect. It also means that the officers we do have work a lot of overtime, which is not very efficient. It's expensive for the city to have all those overtime hours. So we spent a lot of time digging into overtime. One of the things I noted and then asked a couple questions about is that a lot of that increase in overtime seems to be driven by paperwork and reporting requirements. A lot of that's driven by law, and it's important stuff. We want data collection. We certainly want to comply with all of the reporting requirements. But I asked questions about process improvements or use of technology to try to cut down on time. And to be fair, there aren't any real silver bullets there, but probably a bad pun, but I think, that's something though we'll have to keep looking at, because it has been steadily increasing year over year. And, another thing that came up that I thought was interesting, without trying to regurgitate the whole report because it was just too long, but we talked also about redistricting and the fact that there are certain districts that have just a much higher number of calls for service that have to be responded to. And our districts, which were drawn, I believe, back in the 90s, don't necessarily map so well onto where the service needs are. And so I think we'll be talking about redistricting. I also want to make sure as we do that just because parts of D10 don't have as many calls for service, that we don't actually increase our response times, because there are certainly parts of, as a large district geographically, there are parts of our district that already take a very long time to get to. So I'm sensitive to that. But we had a great conversation. We'll be sure to post an update and do some follow-up content on that report, because it was really, really informative.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the most interesting. Not that any one of these items is more important than the other, but there were two more. I know something residents will be really excited to hear about is the new substation. Well,
it's related. So we've been looking for a long-term police academy and training station. We've been using the South San Jose substation for that purpose. And eventually the vision is to open that substation. We'll need more resources to do that. That'll be great. We should have lower response times and better coverage when that happens. But this was a step toward that. And so the city purchased some property in District 2 out by 101 and Coyote Creek, where that will be the future home, basically, of the police academy and training station. We got a great deal on the property. There's a building there that we can retrofit. It's a really, congratulations to Nancy Klein and the Office of Economic Development for helping us identify that site. So I think that's going to be great for residents. And then the other item you mentioned is that we approved what's called an RFP, a request for proposals, for a consultant who will help us work through different ways of conducting police investigations into misconduct, to ensure that they're independent and done with expertise. And there's a question about whether or not they should go into the existing independent police auditor's office or into a separate entity. It's probably more detailed than folks need right now, but basically we'll be working through that. That'll come back to council once a consultant has done some work and has a few options for us to review. So that was the other plea. It was a lot of public safety and policing yesterday.
Yeah, policing, public safety, definitely a lot of what was yesterday, but I think something that's going to be informing the next few weeks is the mayor's budget message, because it's kind of kicking off the like high gear section of the budget season. So tell us about that. Tell us what stood out to you.
Yeah, that was the other big item yesterday, and we did discuss it in quite a bit of detail. This is another document that folks ought to look at if they're interested, because there's just so much great content in there, but I'll just summarize quickly at a high level. The mayor identified 4 areas of focus for the budget. One was what he's calling an equitable recovery, basically COVID recovery that prioritizes putting people back to work, protecting small businesses, those sorts of things. And I'll come back to that one in a moment. The second category was really focused on, back to basics. My mind blanked for a moment, but back to basics, really focused on a clean and safe city, which is something I think we're all very aware of. We're seeing a lot of trash pile up around the city. There's graffiti. I think we all want to see our city be better, cared for and beautified. And I think that's an investment we need to make. And so the mayor called that out, which I really appreciated. He also went into quite a bit of detail. Third focus area was homelessness and affordable housing, which we've talked a bit about. And he actually referenced my first memo, which had to do with identifying public lands where we could build more transitional housing. So whether it's tiny homes or those shipping containers, but basically cost effective, but safe and secure shelter for people transitioning from living on the streets into what we hope will be a permanent housing solution. And then his fourth category was basically fiscal responsibility. And I thought the key point there, which was worth repeating, is that a lot of the funding that we have this year that fills our budget gaps and allows us to do some new and interesting things are really tied to one-time federal funds. And so we just need to keep that in mind. The investments we make have to have value as a one-time funding stream. It's something that we make an investment in that has lasting value, rather than setting up a program that we would just have to shut down a year from now. So just there's so much more in this message, but to go back to that first category of the recovery, the mayor emphasized something he's calling the resilience core. And the vision here is to use some FEMA money, which is emergency management money, and that from the federal government, and then fiscal stimulus funds just passed by Congress, to put young people in our community back to work, or maybe even more importantly, help them get their first job. Because as we know, in some of our neighborhoods, we have 20% unemployment, and we have thousands of young people who have not even been able to get that first job after graduating from school. And so, getting them that first job for the work experience, and even if it's just a 1-year commitment to this resilience core, the idea would be they get job experience, maybe a first job, the ability to potentially launch a career in the area in which they're working, and the community would benefit from that work being in a few key categories. So certainly vaccination rollout being most timely, but also looking at things like emergency preparedness. There's a lot of work we could do there. Relatedly, climate resilience.
Yeah, fire season will be on us before you know it.
I'm just going to say, fires and floods are things that we can always be better prepared for and better protected from. And then learning loss, which is a real passion of mine. We have a lot of young people who have not gotten as much learning, not achieved as much learning this year as they might have without COVID. And we can do a lot to close that gap, we think. So that's really the vision behind it. I think it's a great vision. Still a lot of details to work out, but that was very prominent in the budget message.
Well, thank you, Matt. I know most people don't have time to watch one city council meeting, let alone 2, and we had 2 this week, so it was really great talking with you about what you were up to this week. I know we've already had some response from residents really enjoying these, so I'm glad to keep doing them.
Yeah, thanks for doing these, Liz. Really appreciate it. Talk again soon.
All right, see you next week, everybody.
See you next week.